Hi, friend.
Hi, friend.
And to the brave hearts listening out there, welcome to Permission to be Human. I'm Andrea.
And I'm Janelle.
Get ready for some real-time relationship woo and wisdom
from the front lines with occasional tantrums and tears
about how breaking rules, blurring boundaries, and tossing tradition can be catalysts for finding your truth.
Let's debunk the fairy tales we were told as children and create a new map for life.
Yes, Disney can go fuck itself.
If you're seeking permission to choose your own path,
freedom is the new F word, people,
and want to feel less alone along the way,
we got you. Please note, this is our side of the story. Our partners and metamors have their own individual experiences, and we do not speak for them. Hi, friend.
How you doing? I'm doing well, Andrea. How are you doing?
Oh, I'm doing great, Janelle.
You have your voice. You have many voices. And you have the voice.
What does it say to you?
That you're in it.
Yeah.
But yeah, we're not going to talk about what you're in today.
I'm so tired of talking about that anyway.
What are we going to talk about instead then?
We're going to talk about feminine versus feminist. Two more big F words. They just keep coming. And yeah, are we feminists today? Or are we in our feminine? Or are we both?
That's a great, probably summary. Kind of gets to the point at the end, right at the beginning. But I'm excited to talk about this. This came up on our last podcast when you were like, we have more to talk about here. Let's not just have a one-liner. So now we're making this an entire podcast. Yes. So how about we just dive right in? It's a pretty big topic. So we've got some things to say.
It is. Why don't you start with how feminism began for you?
Yes. When we get into these really big topics, especially ones that are bodies of research, they're also ideologies.
Well, you haven't written a 72-page paper on this, Janelle?
I have not, nor have I written a best-selling book. And so I'm always like, oh, who am I to speak about this? But then I had a friend remind me that as she was listening to one of our other podcasts, she's like, it's so great. It feels like you're not the expert, but yet you know more than me. And that you're giving me the references to the experts I need to know, but you're just then a real person talking about it. And it feels really accessible. So I'm looking at this topic of feminine versus feminist from that vein of I'm not an expert on any of this, but this is my lived experience. And so I may say things that are polarizing. I may say things that are like, what the fuck? But this is me. And here we are doing a podcast about our lives.
Yeah, I love it. That's a great explanation. And hopefully we're translating it from our experience so someone else can learn from it.
Right. Yeah.
And it's tricky because I definitely feel that come up. I'm like, I don't have a degree in women's studies.
Although I do.
Which I didn't know that.
I have a minor. Human development and family studies was my major.
I have never known what your major is. It is astounding to me, the basic facts that we do not know about each other. Wait, one more time. What was your major?
Human development and family studies.
Which means HDFS? That's a social work thing.
Yeah.
Is that what you're going to do?
Exactly.
When you first went to college, were you like, I'm going to be a social worker. I'm going to advocate for women.
I went to Cornell. My parents, my dad and mom were both social workers. My dad was a social worker by certificate. My mom was a court advocate for foster care children.
Okay, that is fascinating. So all that said, you do have a minor in women's studies. Yes. But we're mainly talking from our shared experience. Look at that. We found such a fun opening conversation.
We did.
Without even naming it.
So I identified as a militant feminist most of my life. Very pro-choice, very men and women are equal. Women can do anything a man can do. I worked for the feminist majority out of college in LA. I was a Planned Parenthood volunteer, women's rights activist. I've marched on Washington in the Women's March after Trump was elected.
Women are your cause.
Yeah.
You've dated women. Right.
And I've dated
had a
women.
relationship. Yeah. What does the word feminist mean to you?
That men and women are equal. Hard stop. Except, I guess the except is how do you get there?
Okay. So let's not go there yet. Okay. Because I think it's really important to just nail down. You just said men and women are equal, hard stop. That's what feminism means to you. Do you notice it's very hard for us to give one sentence answers? I dare you. I dare myself.
I literally have my hands in front of my lips right now, brave hearts, like keeping myself quiet.
You'll get your chance. You'll get your chance, smart guy. Anyway, that's a quote from Animal House. Okay. Thanks to my parents for showing me that at an early age. When did this world break apart for you? What changed? At some point, something changed because you are now thinking about not using the word feminist anymore, which was a little bit alarming when I first heard it, but I couldn't wait to hear the rest. So what happened?
I do believe that men and women are equal, but that the feminist philosophy that I was subscribing to was that women had to be in their masculine qualities. So when my ex-husband and I were still dating, probably 2 years or so into our relationship, he told me that he did not identify as a feminist, that he believed men and women were different and that women and men being equal should not be the goal, that he felt women embodied unique qualities, i.e. feminine qualities, that should be valued.
This brings up something else for me, which I didn't think about ahead of time, where my husband has said in the past, yes, I get it. Women and men should be equal, except guess what? Men are never going to have babies. And so let's not pretend that men and women are actually on equal footing in the workplace. Women will always have babies. They will always need to take that time off for the babies. And of course, I'm paraphrasing him now. I'm not quoting him directly, but this was his point. And of course, he's also saying it in a much softer, less aggressive tone than I am, just FYI. It's like, why are we pretending that there's really ever some kind of equality? And I saw his point, but I was also like, well, no, I still want the rate of pay to be the same. And he's like, okay, but how can it be? And I think he's inadvertently pointing out females and males are different.
In response, what I'm hearing is that from where I can stand now is that is true that women have babies, and as a culture, we value the fact that women have babies. We value the fact that having moms and dads, but moms stay at home after they've had a child for a period of time, that we value as a culture that everyone, including the men, benefit from having a mom stay home with their child, then the pay should still be equal. They're just doing different roles. The compensation should be there. The women should get paid for the time that they're at home raising the children for the men.
I agree. So it's very pie in the sky, but yes, I mean, sure, that would be awesome and ideal.
So I think for me, that pie in the sky ideal is this recognition that as the feminist that I was, didn't value the feminine attributes of women. I really felt women can do the same things as men, and thus in the patriarchal society that we are in, I was really undervaluing myself. I absorbed the undervaluing of the feminine qualities that make women special and unique.
And I see. And you were thinking, okay, well, females have to become more male-ish.
Right. I don't even know that I was thinking we were becoming more male. I just knew that we could run a company just like a man could run a company. And the reason why women weren't running companies is because of the oppression and the denial and misogyny and all of that.
Take us back, right? Your fiance said he wasn't a feminist and you were like, what the fuck?
Yeah, I had a full-on meltdown. I felt my face flush. I got hot and livid and confused. And I immediately went to, oh my God, I don't know if I can date him. How have I gotten 2 years in and I didn't know this about him? And can I date someone who's not a feminist?
Yes, fascinating. And that's just like the rigidity with which we hold these ideals up. And we're like, no one can take that off of my pedestal.
He was really elevating women, valuing me in ways that I wasn't valuing myself. So that was really the first conversation that I had that acknowledged the unique and valuable qualities of the feminine. Because in a way, and this is where he was like really pushing me. He's like, have you ever thought about this? Have you just believe everything you said, like women and our men are equal, but let's really dissect this, really go into it. What does that mean? And in this way, in this particular topic, I can be like, oh yeah, I just believed kind of hook, line, and sinker what culture had taught me. And
so I want to go back to our childhoods for a minute, because this is where I feel like I did see both the feminine and the masculine. I saw the value of the feminine in my mother, and then she was also a really powerful woman. So I saw the masculine in her too. So I feel like I saw that complementary energies working together. And are you saying you didn't see that, or that it just didn't resonate for you with the feminist word, maybe?
I don't know how much I intellectually thought about feminine and masculine. Probably very little. Yeah. But so this is what I know. My mom was a teacher before she got pregnant. And then she stopped working when I was born and my brother was born. And she went back to work when I was 12. And I felt that my mom's life was made smaller by not working. Even though I 100% felt her love, and I know that she loved being a mom, and I felt her devotion, and I know that I am probably a much better person in some ways because she didn't go back to work. But I also remember being like, I'm not going to stay at home if I have kids. I'm not going to be a teacher because those were undervalued and underpaid, which I still think is true. I think that they're the most important role in our children's lives other than being a parent. And I can now see that. But I was like, I'm not going to do that because I want to feel valued. And I'm not going to learn to cook.
You purposely did not learn to cook? So
yes.
Interesting.
I only learned to value cooking when I was 19. And my best friend, Ginny at the time, we went camping and she cooked me a gourmet meal on a camp stove. And I was like, oh, this is a really great skill to have.
Let's talk about that for a minute. Just from the very beginning, did not want to cook, did not want to learn to cook. But I think it actually served me well as knowing that I wasn't going to spend my life in the kitchen. I never had been attracted to it. And so the kitchen was never my domain. But I do want to call out in this spirit of you saying I'm not going to cook.
I think I absorbed the cultural undervaluing of the feminine aspects of being a woman. And I associated being in the kitchen with being a woman and the aspects of being a woman that I didn't want to hold.
Okay, so to circle back, I'm hearing that you thought women needed to change for feminism to succeed. And if they wanted to be treated fairly and valued, they had to embrace more of their masculine. Is that correct?
Yes, although I don't think I thought of it as changing. I just did think I was like, oh, wait, we can do this. That we're also capable of being driven for success. We can do math and we can run companies. We have these skills. We're capable of all of this. So I saw these parts as equal, not a changing. But what it is that I think I was only valuing the similarities that women had with men, and I didn't put value and focuses on the differences that we had.
I think that's clear, and that's helpful.
So what about you?
Right. I would say I did not probably know much about the word feminism or feminist until my 20s. I read The Feminine Mystique. But in general, I feel like even in my early 20s, I was a little frustrated with feminism because I felt like there was all this rhetoric about feminists not having children, not getting married, not succumbing to this housewifery thing, not needing a man. And I was like, what the hell? Can't I be strong and share my life with a guy and have a family and be a mom together? Can't they fit together? I feel like it didn't work for me. I felt like it was making me choose. Either I got to be single and be strong and be independent, or go and have a family and be a mom. And maybe I didn't see a lot of role models early on that were doing both, right? Because my mom also stayed home. She was very strong and very hardworking, but she stayed home. She helped my dad run the family business. I also didn't have examples of people who didn't have kids. Everyone around me had children. Like that wasn't an option, or it wasn't seen as a valid option. I think one of the turning points was reading Kate Chopin's Awakening, where she said, and I spoke about this in the motherhood episode, where she said, I would die for my children, but I wouldn't give up my life for my children, right? Mm-hmm. So I was like, oh, okay, I can work with that. Yes, I'd jump in front of a train for them, but I'm not going to give up my whole life just to devote to them. I want to have my own life too. It's like, great, they can coexist. And then I discovered Planned Parenthood because I started going there, and then I became part of the pro-choice movement, and I marched on Washington, and I wore a bulletproof vest at the clinic on 18th and Vine. And I remember my mom saying to me, like, isn't there a safer way that you could give back to the community? But I just kept going, right? And I taught against abstinence-only education in Colorado Springs and phone banked. And anyway, did a lot of raising money for the Young Advocates Council for Planned Parenthood of the Rocky Mountains. And I felt so empowered and strong in my 20s doing that. I was just like discovering who I was. And I felt like at the time, feminism meant freedom. It was attached to this F word that we talk about a lot, like freedom from the government, freedom from men to make our own choices.
Okay, so hold on. Yeah. So you thought of feminism as freedom from men and freedom from the government to make your own choices.
And of course, as well, like men and women should be equal. That was part of the rhetoric. Okay. But there was something about the freedom that resonated with me.
I think the word that I would say is like independent. I can do everything myself kind of energy. I'm capable. I can go at it alone.
I think I was definitely missing that. I was like, yeah, I want to be strong and independent, but I'd prefer to have someone with me. I think there was that dual tug of the dance there. And a few years ago, I bought this feminist canvas bag. I forget where I got it, and I still carry it around whenever when I get at my daughter's sporting events or whatever. Like it's a bag I'm often using. And I remember wanting to write in black Sharpie at some point the word thoughtful in front of it. Yes, I'm a thoughtful feminist. Because I started hearing a lot of man-hating feminism that felt too extreme, like the pendulum was swinging too far the other way, as if men could only be either misogynists or idiots, and there was no room for them in the middle. And this didn't sit well with me.
Was this for Me Too movement or before that?
I would say it was before that. And so this was frustrating as well. So yeah, that brings me to today. Okay, so as we embrace the masculine and the feminine, where does that leave the word feminist? So let's get back to these feminine masculine qualities you were talking about.
I do believe that all of us have both masculine and feminine qualities within us, and that the integration of those attributes within ourselves is the divine union. There's a polarity that exists between the feminine and the masculine, both within us and in relation to others. What I mean by polarity is that attraction, like the law of attraction, is like the opposites attract. And someone who is leading with their masculine is going to be attracted to someone in their feminine. Like that is a law of attraction. And we can see it in our various relationships. Now, of course, some men have more feminine qualities than masculine qualities, and some women naturally have stronger masculine qualities. So to be clear, I'm not talking about gender or sexual orientation. Like non-binary and non-heterosexual people also have both of these qualities within them. But only in the past couple of years, since 2020, has my understanding and appreciation for the feminine started to change. And only in the past few months have I uttered that phrase that I really identify and am devoted to the feminine, and less so as a feminist. I still believe men and women are equal, but I now value the differences between us in a completely different way than feminism taught me.
So what I'm hearing is that you started on one side and you're almost swinging to the other. Is there a space in the middle where you're like, okay, I value the similarities, I value the differences, here's the neutral space?
I feel like I am in the neutral space in the sense that I deeply honor the masculine and I deeply honor the feminine. What I'm saying is that like I spent most of my life only honoring the masculine, only valuing the masculine while probably sometimes actually devaluing men
for all their masculine energy.
That's where the clusterfuck happened for.
Yeah. When you say masculine and feminine, I think this is where I feel my anxiety come up because I think it gets tricky here, especially to...
You want me? I'll do some definitions. So we're talking about qualities or attributes. The masculine qualities or attributes get expressed when you're working towards a goal, you're making progress, getting things done, setting containers, pushing forward. It's like a penetrative energy.
Good word.
The feminine attributes get expressed when we're moving in the flow of life, like listening, and kind of it can look like chaos, like embracing creative energy, dance, play, attuning to our intuition.
I think there is such a natural defensive stance that comes up when people hear that. And they're like, that's not true. My feminine is very aggressive and da 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 da. I get what you're saying. And to me, that feels like a traditional definition.
I think I've had to go on a journey of unpacking what is traditional and is everything traditional bad. And again, we grew up in a culture in the era that we did where feminine attributes were looked down upon. What I have had to do to get to where I'm at today is to go inside and listen to what is it that feels true for me. Some of those things that feel true are feminine attributes that have been around for millennia. And so you could say are traditional. They exist. Like the qualities that I just listed in that definition are unchanging, I guess. The only thing that changes whether we're valuing them or not, but what they are doesn't change.
Yeah, I mean, I hear you. And I think what I realized as you were talking was that just goes back to culture. And our culture values progress and getting shit done so much that the masculine
productivity
is always going to be above the feminine. I mean,
not always going to be, but that is what it has been.
Yes. And even in my own life, I mean, I fight against this constantly, right? I'm like, okay, can I just relax, be playful, find the joy? There's the chaos. No, I'd prefer some structure. Where's my list? I want to get shit done. I have to be productive. That's just what happens. It's the constant dance of these two voices.
And as you and I know, we are very complementary when we've talked about this in terms of the skills that we are bringing to this podcast. I actually think you and I both hold and honor our masculine qualities, and we both hold our feminine qualities. And I think from instant to instant, right? There's times when you're like, we need more structure. And I'm like, and I'm like, but okay, you're right. So you're bringing me back. And then there's other times where I'm like, we don't need as much as you think. It's going to be fine. Like the divine, we're so wholly supported by the divine. And so the dance goes within ourselves and with who we're relating to. Here we are the same gender. And then it also goes in relation to who like our partners
are. You want
to
reference the book? Yeah.
My absolute best resource on this topic of masculine and feminine relating in a way that embodies and values these characteristics is Alison Armstrong. She has written The Queen's Code and Keys to the Kingdom. I'm speaking from my current understanding. I'm explaining her work the best that I can. But for anyone curious about this deeper, I highly, highly recommend her books. And I'll also say I read her book, The Queen's Code, in 2020. I feel like I am only embodying it now. It is taking me years to unpack this whole concept of the feminine, and then realizing that I was devaluing it and devaluing women, how that was happening in my system through culture. And then how does it live within me? And then, how do I identify? Is it feels true for me? And now how do I lead from there? I mean, it has been a fucking journey.
And now as you were realizing, there's a fear that I felt when I read that Queen's Code, and I read most of it. There's some fear of reversion back to like, being the wife and the husband's in charge. Mainly because it's not that I'm not valuing that feminine feeling, because I actually do, and I crave that masculine energy. But there's some message from society that invokes fear in me around it, because I'm afraid I'm going to be just put there and I'm going to be told I can't do anything else. That's where the resistance comes up.
Do you feel that in her book, I don't understand where the fear is from reading the book.
It's the same fear I had when I listened to that Rupani podcast. Om Rupani is like, whoa, like, what is this, 1955? There's just so much cultural backsliding is how it feels right away. It's like an instant kind of like, oh my God. And I had to turn it off. Even though I saw some of what he was saying, in general, Bravehearts, what I'm talking about is just this very traditional place for the woman. Woman belongs in the home. She's good at making children. She's good at being in all of her feminine, which is great as long as she can be in her masculine too.
So I agree. And in my opinion, so Om Rupani, who's a polarity coach and one of my teachers, who I deeply respect and value and recognize, a lot of his content is polarizing, and you're stating it perfectly. I don't believe he or Alison Armstrong is saying women should be in the home.
So I believe you. And I think it's just a habitual paradigm, perhaps, that lives within me from the culture that's just like, oh my God, like panic.
Right.
Like, no, they're telling, I'm scared. Like, I need to be strong. I need to be a woman. Like, and so if I can calmly take it and say, okay, this doesn't cancel this out. Both can coexist and live together. It's fine. But that kind of rhetoric reminds me of an oppressive rhetoric from the past.
Right. So I think, yeah, you're bringing up a point, which is cultural conditioning is deep. And for anyone who's going against cultural conditioning, there's going to be a lot of resistance to it. And like I said, like I read Alison Armstrong in 2020. It took me 3 years before I feel like I'm embodying it. I don't think I could have been one of Om's students even 2 years ago. And so it's also surprising to me to see my own evolution of like, oh, I completely resonate with everything he's saying. And most other versions of myself in my lifetime would not have been okay.
They would have railed against it. Yeah.
And what I see both of them doing is actually revering women, revering the qualities of the feminine. And how I see both of their work is because I know Om says this, I don't know about Alison, they were also raised in a feminist culture as feminists. They've devoted their lives to men and women relating, and they're looking at people are really fucking unhappy in their relationships. So if feminism and the way it was structured and the ideology behind it, not about men and women being equal, but how do you achieve that, worked, great. I don't think either one of them would have books and be talking about it. It's the fact that they're like, both men and women are unhappy. They don't know what their roles are. They're going against what their internal body is saying feels true for them. Miserable, divorce rates are sky high. Here's some options to think about. Yeah, so the takeaway is that of both of them is that like men and women are equal, but feminine qualities are as important, as beautiful, and as valued, and as exquisite, and as unique as masculine qualities, and both are necessary in order for relationships to really thrive.
So let's talk about now how the masculine and the feminine has played out in your being.
For the first 40 years of my life, I was really learned to be successful in this world, i.e. really learning to be in my masculine. On my own, being in business, paying taxes, figuring out how to get shit done. And I was really good at it. From 40 to 49, I then went on a spiritual journey. And part of that was learning to understand what feminine meant. And this was a deep study and learning to value and appreciate these qualities within me. During that time, I actually let go of a lot of my masculine qualities. And I went deep into the feminine into a way where I didn't have really almost any structure.
Yeah, it's a lot of surrendering.
A lot of surrender.
A lot of letting go.
Yes. I feel like I went to the edge of my surrender to the point where it's like my masculine is not holding me. My human is not holding me. I'm not functioning successfully in this world. It's because I've gone now so spiritual and so feminine, if you will. So that recognition was like, oh, now I get to bring them both back together. Whereas like I get to bring in my masculine that I know well, but I had kind of been pushing aside for the last 9 years while I like did this deep dive. And now I actually trust and really honor my feminine. So I feel now in this present moment that I trust my masculine, I respect my feminine. It's been a key aspect to me coming home to myself. And now I move forward in the world from an integrated place.
So I'm hearing that you're depending on yourself for both energies. You're embodying both energies, find both energies in yourself. Does that mean you don't seek out a particular balance in a partner or with friends?
No, I would say that how it feels in my system is, back to your point, is freedom. Is that I have come home to myself. I can take care of myself. And I then am choosing from that place a partner or people to be interacting with. I'm seeking a man in his masculine, but someone who is aware of these dynamics within himself, meaning that he also honors his own feminine, just like I honor my masculine. But I am, in this present day, I would describe myself as leading with my feminine.
And how do you do that?
I've got a couple of different tools I've learned along the way. There's this concept of the feminine predator, like Venus Flytrap, where you're waiting for a fly to come to you. So like I'm waiting for someone or something to come to me instead of like going out and pursuing it. I have a practice around that. But this isn't a passive. I'm not like sitting here on my couch with my eyes closed waiting for life to come to me. This is an active waiting where I'm actually like listening and leaning in. That's one thing that I do. The other is investing in my radiance. And we've done a whole topic on this, but recognizing that my radiance represents for me the full blossoming of my feminine. And that when I actually take the time to feel good, sleep, food, exercise, clothing, then I am exuding my femininity in a way that draws people in and makes them feel good.
Again, matching that first paradigm where you're just like, you're not going out and seeking, but you're attracting.
Right. Like I'm magnetizing. But in order for that magnetism to work, I have to feel really grounded, centered, and like in my radiance.
It's surprisingly aligned with business, right? Like if you build a brand where you feel at home, then you're going to attract the right people and you don't need to go seek and grasp for them.
Agreed. Yeah. The other thing is that I give myself spaciousness to listen to my intuition, which means a lot of alone time, a lot of contemplation, a lot of discomfort when I don't have an answer yet versus moving from I should know, and make a decision right away. So this one in particular can be hard and scary sometimes while I'm just waiting for clarity to come.
And what would you tell someone who's like, I'm listening, I'm waiting? Is there a desperation or a panic that stops that from coming? I don't even know if this is a valid question. It's just like, it's what always comes up for me. Maybe it's patience.
Oh shit. Patience is a really big fucking part of this whole journey. Patience. Oh my God. That was one of my words. I think 2021. Yeah. Patience. Right. Because this is the divine operates at a pace along a space-time continuum that is not the one that we follow here as humans. So yeah, there's a lot of patience that is required of myself. And of like, oh, I don't always know. And patience against my own mind, of my mind wanting productivity and to know now, and like what's the next step? What's the goal? All of those things, having to be like, I don't know. Take a deep breath. I don't know yet until I know. And I would say part of my impetus for all of this is that I have learned painfully through life experience that as a woman in her masculine, meeting a man in his masculine was really challenging, and it made for an unsatisfying dynamic.
I'm just laughing because as I have been in my masculine most of my life as well.
Leading with your masculine.
With my masculine, I guess. Yeah, I haven't phrased it that way. Yeah, okay. I think I can take that in. I've been leading with my masculine and missing my feminine. So trying to drop back into my feminine presents this rub of craving the masculine, but then also having to step back and let someone else be in their masculine instead of me.
I mean, that's a really prickly part of this process where you're being patient. Not like, oh, I'm sitting here being patient, eating bonbons. You're like, oh, I'm not doing something that feels like I'm comfortable doing, like I'm used to doing.
Right. Absolutely. And I see this a lot just in couples, in marriages, where I guess just with friends, I won't pinpoint. It's just woman's like, okay, come on, I need your help, to the man, to the dad, like, do this, do this, do this. But a lot of times women are not willing to step out of their masculine long enough for the men to take over. And I know I have also been guilty of that. I get that. It is all about just raising constant awareness of where I'm leading from.
There's another teacher I wanted to bring up, or author, is Deida. And he has a book called Intimate Communion. And he talks about 3 different stages of relationship. And a quick summary is that a stage 1 relationship, the man wants to be honored for his external qualities, like how much money he's made, what he's done, the car he drives, kind of thing. A stage 2 relationship is where the couple is equal and that he wants to be honored. I'm speaking from the man's perspective. Deida is a men's work teacher, where the man wants to be seen as this feminist man who is, in a way, in his feminine, while his woman is in her masculine. Like the kind of characterization of the relationships that we see a lot today. And then the stage 3 is this balancing together of the man wanting to be seen for the integration of both how he has succeeded in the world, how he is an embodied masculine, successful in all the different ways, but also has the ability to be compassionate and integrate his internal intuition and feminine pieces. I'm bringing that in because Alison Armstrong, Om Rupani, and Deida are like 3 really rich resources for people who, brave hearts. If anything that we have said today resonates, then those are where I'd guide you.
Rich content, deep shit. And you have really done a lot of work around this. And it's always enlightening. Like I always learn something a little bit new, or I'm like, okay, I've heard that 15 times and now it just landed a little bit differently because I've changed and I can hear it in a new voice from a new angle. This is ultimately challenging so much of our cultural conditioning. And I constantly go back to that as being sometimes the biggest barrier to understanding.
Thank you for honoring the work and naming the work that I've done on this and like all of the conditioning that I had to shed. And I can speak to it from a place of like, yeah, my relationship was really painful with my ex-husband because like friction, like changing from one side. And my husband was very masculine, and I was meeting him in my masculine. So by the time I figured this out, my marriage was already ending. And a year later, now my heart feels open and ready to be calling in a man, like confident in their masculinity, so that I can explore and play with him as, a spiritual tantric lover, like honoring him, lifting him up, serving as his muse. Things I've always wanted, but never achieved when I led from my masculine. And there is honoring and grief that I have learned these skills and now will offer them to someone else and not to my husband.
Oh my God, there's so much here. Okay, Bravehearts.
Yeah,
I'm like, we'll send you a memo. What do we want to tell them to do?
Yeah, just like all the teachers that I spoke about. Deida, the book Intimate Communion, The Way of the Superior Man, Alison Armstrong, Queen's Code, and Keys to the Kingdom, Om Rupani. You can find him omrupani.com. He's a polarity coach.
And how are you, or how could you be valuing your feminine qualities more? How can you place a higher priority, a higher value? How can you see the feminine in you a little more clearly?
and while not diminishing your masculine. That is the key. This isn't about, oh, we're elevating the feminine and thus the masculine is decreasing. There is a deep, deep honoring that I have of the masculine qualities and of men. That is a takeaway that I need to say.
Okay, we have to stop talking now. So much to say. Thank you for listening.
Yep.
We love you. We love you for hearing us and pondering and getting curious.
Do you need permission to be human? You got it. Listen, subscribe, and review on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Learn more about us at permissiontobehuman.live.